Trump supporters turn rowdy in protests of the still undecided election. Trump supporters ramped up demonstrations on Thursday night against an election they believe was rigged or being stolen, in some cases bringing guns, or clashing with counter-protesters, as they rallied in battleground states. In Arizona, one of 5 U.S. battleground states where votes were still being counted in the too-close-to-call race between Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden, Trump supporters massed outside the Maricopa County Elections Department in Phoenix. Police intervened and broke up the altercation after the man and his small group of counter-demonstrators were surrounded by Trump activists, according to a Reuters witness. There were no reports of injuries. In Milwaukee, some 50 Trump supporters gathered in front of a city building where votes were being counted, blasting country music, waving flags, and carrying signs reading "Recount" and "Rigged." Roughly a dozen counter-protesters arrived after an hour, shouting "Black Lives Matter" and "Say their names," referring to the victims of police brutality. Others threw eggs at the Trump supporters from a passing car. Loud patriotic anthems blared over speakers as scores waved giant Trump and American flags. In Washington, D.C., a procession of cars and bicycles sponsored by activists from a group called Shut Down D.C. paraded slowly through the streets of the Capitol to protest what they called an attack on the democratic process by Trump and his enablers, according to its website. A study of dog DNA has shown that our best friend in the animal world may also be our oldest one. The analysis reveals that dog domestication can be traced back 11,000 years, to the end of the last ice age. This confirms that dogs were domesticated before any other known species. The question of why did people do that? How did that come about? That's what we're ultimately interested in. To some extent, dog genetic patterns mirror human ones, because people took their animal companions with them when they moved. But there were also significant differences. An international team analyzed the whole genomes of 27 ancient dog remains associated with a variety of archaeological cultures. They compared these to each other and modern dogs. The results reveal that breeds like the Rhodesian Ridgeback in southern Africa and the Chihuahua and Xoloitzcuintli in Mexico retain genetic traces of ancient indigenous dogs from the region. Experts say that dogs are our oldest and closest animal partner. Using DNA from ancient dogs is showing us just how far back our shared history goes, and will ultimately help us understand when and where this deep relationship began. Dogs are thought to have evolved from wolves that ventured into human camps, perhaps sniffing around for food. As they were tamed, they could then have served humans as hunting companions or guards. The results suggest all dogs derive from a single extinct wolf population, or perhaps a few very closely related ones. Doctors said that it was unclear when or where the initial domestication occurred. Dog history has been so dynamic that you can't count on it. It is still there to be readily read in their DNA. We really don't know, that's the fascinating thing about it. Did you notice the Halloween Hunter's blue moon last week? October is usually the month of festivities, and this year, it was even more special, as we are experienced a real, once-in-a-blue moon phenomenon on October 31st. October 31st is the night the sky is graced with a rare blue moon. Something extra special about this moon is that it has lit up the sky on the spooky night of Halloween. Much to the delight of sky watchers, there were 2 full moons in October. One on October 1st, and the other one on October 31st. When such a rare phenomenon occurs, that is when there are 2 full moons in one calendar month, the second full moon is called the blue moon. This phenomenon is so rare, that it gave birth to the proverbial phrase, once in a blue moon, which is used to denote something that does not occur frequently. Although we call it the blue moon, it does not mean the moon actually appeared blue in the night sky on October 31st. In fact, if the moon ever does appear blue to us, it would be because of the dust and smoke particles present in the atmosphere. Generally, the blue moon is visible from some parts of the world and not all. This year, however, people across all time zones could see it. What's even more impressive is that this occurrence of seeing the moon from everywhere takes place after almost 76 years. Last time it took place in 1944. Are Indians more immune to COVID-19? The World Health Organization says safe water, sanitation, and hygienic conditions are essential for the protection of health against COVID-19. Millions of Indians have limited access to clean water, consume unhygienic food, breathe foul air, and live in densely packed surroundings. A joint study by the WHO and the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, found that nearly 3 billion people, some 40% of the global population, and living almost entirely in developing nations, lack basic hand-washing facilities. This was enough to spark concerns that the coronavirus would tear through their populations and lead to millions of deaths in countries such as India. However, India accounts for only 10% of the world's deaths from the virus, and its case fatality rate, which measures deaths among COVID-19 patients, is less than 2%, which is among the lowest in the world. Now, new research by Indian scientists suggests that low hygiene, lack of clean drinking water, and unsanitary conditions may have actually saved many lives from severe COVID-19. In other words, they propose that people living in low and low-middle-income countries may have been able to stave off severe forms of the infection because of exposure to various pathogens from childhood, which gives them sturdier immunity to COVID-19. Clearly, a range and variety of reasons could be possibly behind the low fatality rate. We still have a lot more to learn about the virus as we are still only 10 months into the pandemic, says an expert. The fact is there is much we don't know. China wants to build a Tibet with more wealth and less Buddhism. In Tibet, often called the roof of the world, because of its high elevation along the Himalayas, ethnic Tibetans comprise about 90% of the 3.5 million people spread across. Their language bears no relation to Chinese, most are Buddhists, and many consider the Dalai Lama their spiritual head, if not their political leader. For China, showcasing Tibetans singing the Communist Party's praises helps affirm its legitimacy to rule the region, something that's weighed on Beijing's ties with the West since a failed uprising in 1959 forced the Dalai Lama to flee and set up a government in exile in India. It's become more critical recently as politicians in the US, Europe, and India accuse China of using forced labor, detentions, and re-education campaigns to assimilate ethnic minorities in its borderlands. But Beijing is also investing heavily in Tibet, betting that new roads, jobs, better housing and improved access to education and healthcare will bring stability to the region. It's also counting on modern life to erode the sway that religion has had over Tibet since the 7th century. Since 2016, China has spent more than $11 billion on poverty alleviation efforts in Tibet. Authorities say they've pulled 628,000 people above the country's absolute poverty threshold. Tibet is crucial to Beijing for strategic purposes. Its mountainous terrain abuts a 4,000-kilometer, 2,500-mile border with countries including India, Nepal and Myanmar, forming a natural security barrier. For the Chinese president, the key to snuffing out calls for independence in Tibet and strengthening Communist Party rule is delivering economic growth in one of China's poorest regions. Online meetings for national leaders. November is shaping up as one of the busiest months of 2020 for the External Affairs Ministry in terms of virtual summits of groupings such as the SCO, the BRICS and the ASEAN, with leaders of India and China expected to be on the same online platform at 5 meetings. The virtual SCO summit, to be hosted by Russia, will be the first time that PM Modi and Jinping will join an online meeting since the border standoff in Ladakh emerged into the open in May. The two leaders had joined a virtual G20 summit in April this year to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted most diplomatic engagements. It is believed that the External Affairs Ministry is making hectic preparations for all these summits and meetings, especially to push India's efforts to have a greater role in the manufacturing and delivery of vaccines for COVID-19. Russia, which is hosting the SCO and the BRICS summits, had made a push for holding both meetings in person, but wasn't able to make much headway as leaders of several countries were reluctant to travel amid the continuing spread of COVID-19, the People said. Sources say the meeting of Prime Minister Modi and President Jinping on a virtual platform will have no impact on the situation in Ladakh. Of all the upcoming meetings, the G20 summit being hosted by Saudi Arabia is expected to play a key role in efforts to shape the post-pandemic world order and global economic recovery from the impact of COVID-19. Who is the greatest? Not to compare though. Lewis Hamilton achieved a groundbreaking record in Formula One's history by breaking the record for the most Formula One Grand Prix wins by a driver. His win of the Portuguese Grand Prix was his 92nd Grand Prix victory, leading him to break the record he previously tied with racing legend Michael Schumacher for Germany, who won 91. Both drivers are regarded as greats, racking up wins with Terminator-like ruthlessness, and Hamilton's career statistics mirror Schumacher's in several categories. So how to choose the greatest? In an age where it seems only drivers from affluent backgrounds with heavy financial backing can make their way into F1, it is interesting that both Hamilton and Schumacher's parents sacrificed much for their sons' passions. Some say you can best judge how good a driver is based on their teammates' performances. And both Hamilton and Schumacher have stunning records against their teammates. It is a testament to the greatness of both racers that they have finished races on the podium more often than they haven't. And with over 40 fewer race starts, Hamilton has a ratio better than one win in every 3 races. The pair's podiums and wins tally are very similar, but Hamilton is head and shoulders in front on pole positions achieved. For many, this is a point to Hamilton. But, if anything, the deficit between the number of poles and race wins is a testament to Schumacher's determination to succeed. Hamilton has won 8 of the 12 races in this year's World Championship. A victory in the next round at Imola will secure Hamilton a 7th world title, the one significant record of Schumacher's he has yet to equal or eclipse. Hamilton is 35 now, and is showing no signs of slowing down. Having beaten Schumacher's record, it is within the realms of possibility that the Briton will continue to add to his tally, setting records for years to come. At his current rate, Hamilton will reach 100 wins next season, and maybe even get 8 world titles next year too. Schumacher's greatness is cemented in history, but Hamilton will march on to even greater acclaim for years to come.
Hey everyone, I'm Hrishik. Hope you're doing well. Don't worry about difficulties in life. Enjoy your life with fun and excitement. Diwali is fast approaching. If you really need to burst crackers, buy crackers which produces less noise and less smoke. But try to avoid it. Engage yourself in other sports and have fun.
If you like our contents, please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel.